Hey guys, Jeff PELIZZARO from 18 Strong, and today we are going to talk about getting your hips moving better so you can make a better golf swing. So a lot of golfers have trouble rotating their hips properly, and if you can't rotate your hips properly, it's hard to make a good swing without compensating or causing your back to hurt or something else going wrong. So I just want to touch on ways that you can improve the way that your hips are moving just in general, and then we're going to go a little deeper in a couple of videos on ways to both stretch and strengthen the hips. So what I find is most common is golfers, when they go into their follow through or go into impact position, they have trouble with this front hip rotating. We call that internal rotation. And if you can't rotate internally properly, then it's going to cause a little bit of an issue either coming up out of your swing, or it's going to cause you to rotate at your back. So there's a lot of bad things that can happen when you don't rotate your hips properly. The first thing for me is I feel like most of us don't move our hips enough. So we tend to sit in a chair most of the day, or you're in a car, you're on a plane, whatever, and so you're constantly in this position of hip flexion, maybe even kind of letting the legs kind of fall out sideways. And so we have a lot of trouble with anything outside of those positions. So that being, being able to get your hip to extend or to rotate, on a leg like so. So the first thing I'm going to have you do, we're going to touch on 3 things today, and that's just to get your hips moving better. The first one is a standing position, and you're just going to do basically what we call hip circles, or controlled articular rotations is the more proper thing to say. Or CARS, C-A-R-S, controlled articular rotations. So in a standing position, I like to grab onto something so you don't have to worry about your balance. But you're going to stand and just take your hip through a big range of motion. So you don't have to get too technical on this the first few times that you do it, but you're just doing kind of a big circle here, both forward and backwards, rotating and pushing into these different positions. Now you'll notice as I'm here, I'm standing as tall as possible. I'm going to try to keep that position, but as I go into these other ranges, it gets hard to hold that while I'm trying to rotate and push my leg around. I find myself kind of wanting to dip forward, and so you'll find that as well. Just do as good of a job as you can, staying nice and tall, keeping your chest up, keeping this other leg real straight. So I don't want to see you leaning back and doing any of this stuff where you're kind of moving all around. So the direction is come up with your knee, come out to the side as wide as you can, but I don't want to see you flailing out this way. So don't let your hips rotate. You're going to come up, you're going to bring this knee out to the side, and now here's where it gets really hard. You're going to try to keep your knee right where it is as you raise that foot up towards the ceiling. And then once you get as high as you can, you're going to take that knee backwards like so. And now I'm feeling this all through my glutes, my hip, and I'm going to rotate around, and I'm going to bring that leg in kind of to the side. So my knees are next to each other. Now I'm going to go backwards. So my knee is going backwards. I'm keeping my leg bent, and I'm really feeling this in my glute and even in my hamstring because I'm keeping my knee bent. And then I'm going to come up out to the side, kind of like I'm going up over a big hurdle, right in front, and then coming back down. So that's one of the best things that you can do for your hips. I would do this every single day and do it 3 to 5 times in both directions. Then you would turn around and do it on the other side. Now, some people find the standing up position really hard to do. You can also do it on your hands and knees. If for some reason you can't balance on one leg or you have an issue there, this is another good alternative. Now this one poses its own separate challenges though. It's going to be the same exact motion. You're just in this position. Now again, the idea is keep everything else as still and stationary as possible as you go through those motions. So you're going to go same thing, the knees coming up. Now it's going to go out to the side. Again, without rotating my hips, or my pelvis, I should say. You're going to go out to the side as high as you can. You're going to kind of kick that heel up and you're going to bring it back this way. And then back to the starting position almost, and then you're going to reverse it. So knee stays bent, you're going up as high as you can, really trying to get that extension right there, coming out to the side, going into that big circle there. So again, what I think of is an imaginary hurdle that's right here, and I got to get my knee kind of out, up, over it, rotating around that way, and then coming back this way, up and over it like so. You'll notice I'm doing it nice and slow. I want that slow, controlled movement, trying to improve the range of motion each time. So there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of intent on making that motion even bigger each and every time. So don't just rush through these, or you'll really miss out on the whole intent of the exercise. All right, then the last one is what we call the 90-90. And I've done this in tons of videos, tons of Instagram posts, because it's one of my favorite positions to work on the hips. And so I feel that everybody needs to work on being able to sit in this position unless you have some sort of hip replacement precautions or hip precautions. But if you can't sit in this position, you know that you need work on your hips, your trunk strength, your core. And believe it or not, a lot of you won't be able to sit in this position both on your left side and on your right side. So starting here, if you can't sit here, put a hand down and try to sit up as tall as possible. And so from here, I want you to work on being able to go from this position, ideally this position, to the other side. Make sure I don't squash my mic here. To the other side without any assistance. So notice the position of the legs, 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here. That's why we call it the 90-90. So you're sitting here. Again, if you have to, put your hands behind you and work on keeping your feet down. I'm going to bring this knee up as high as I can. So I'm really getting as much width here as I can as I rotate and I come this way. Now without the hands, same thing. Keeping the feet down. Trying to get this knee as high as I can get it, so I'm getting a big wide spread of the knees, staying nice and tall, and then coming over to the side here. I like to do this one back and forth, 3, 5, even 10 times. It's just a really good way to get that rotation in the hips. This is a great one to do either at home or in the locker room before you play a round of golf. But either way, I want you to start working on getting your hips moving a lot more freely, because if they move more freely, you're going to gain some more control over that rotational move, which again, as you come through the shot here, or as you're rotating into your backswing this way, you've got to rotate on that back hip. So the better your hips are moving, the better your golf swing is going to be. All right, if you like these videos, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page and go over and check out the podcast over at 18strong.com.